From darkness to light, how she overcame life's hardships. There was a time when Emily felt lost in a world that seemed only to bring sorrow. For years, she had struggled to find her footing, facing hardship after hardship, each one heavier than the last. Life hadn't been easy for her, not since she was young. She had lost her mother at a young age, and her father had fallen into a deep depression, leaving Emily to navigate her teenage years alone. By the time she entered adulthood, she had become an expert at keeping her emotions bottled up, burying pain under layers of resilience. But that resilience was wearing thin. At 25, she found herself alone in a big city, holding down a job that drained her, with no friends nearby and a heart weighed down by years of loneliness. It was a darkness she carried with her, invisible to those around her but ever present within her. She longed for change, for someone who could break through the walls she had built around her heart. But her past experiences had taught her that love was fleeting, something that always slipped through her fingers just when she thought she had found it. One cold, rainy evening, Emily was sitting alone in a cafe, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, watching the rain hit the window in a slow, sad rhythm. She often came to this small cafe after work, seeking comfort in the smell of coffee and the quiet murmur of voices. It was her sanctuary from the world, a place where she could sit and let herself feel, if only a little. That evening, a man walked into the cafe, soaked from the rain, and took a seat near her. She couldn't help but glance at him. He was ruggedly handsome, with a warmth in his eyes that caught her attention. He looked over and gave her a quick, friendly smile before returning to his book. For a moment, their eyes met, and Emily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a small spark of hope, as if the universe was nudging her to believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could still happen in her life. The man's name was James. Over the next few weeks, they began to notice each other more and more at the cafe, both drawn there by the quiet refuge it offered from the busy city. Eventually, one night he broke the ice and they struck up a conversation. Emily found herself laughing, truly laughing, for the first time in what felt like years. There was an ease between them, a warmth that wrapped around her heart like a soft blanket. They started meeting regularly, and soon their coffee dates turned into long walks in the city, late-night conversations and shared stories that spilled out with a vulnerability that surprised her. James was different from anyone she had ever met. He too had his share of hardships. He had been through a painful divorce and lost a loved one to illness. Yet he had an outlook on life that was full of compassion, kindness, and an ability to find beauty in small things. It was as if he had taken his pain and turned it into light, and that light was something Emily found herself drawn to. As their friendship deepened, so did her feelings for him. But with those feelings came fear, the fear of being hurt again, of opening herself up only to have the darkness return. She tried to keep her walls up to protect herself, but James saw through them. He could see the pain she carried, the weight of her past, and he was patient, never pushing her but always there, like a steady hand ready to catch her if she fell. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset over the river, James turned to her with a gentle, understanding look. "Emily," he said, his voice soft, "I know you've been through a lot, and I know that it's hard to believe that things can get better, but you don't have to carry this alone. You deserve to feel loved, to be happy." Her heart tightened at his words. It was as if he had looked directly into her soul, seen the darkness there, and instead of recoiling, had chosen to offer her light. For the first time, Emily allowed herself to open up completely, sharing her fears, her past, and the sorrow she had carried for so long. Tears fell as she spoke, and James held her hand, his own eyes misty as he listened, offering her a quiet strength that made her feel for the first time that she wasn't alone. Their relationship blossomed into something she had only dreamed of. James became her anchor, her guiding light, gently leading her out of the darkness. He taught her to see beauty in the world again, to appreciate the little things: a warm cup of tea on a rainy morning, the sound of laughter, the comfort of a kind touch. With him, life began to feel vibrant and full of color, something she had thought she would never experience again. Emily's journey wasn't easy, even with James by her side. There were still days when the weight of her past bore down on her, when the memories of loneliness and loss returned to haunt her. But each time, James was there to remind her that healing wasn't linear, and that she didn't have to face her struggles alone. Together, they worked through her pain, piece by piece, until the darkness began to fade, replaced by a light that grew stronger each day. One winter evening, as they walked through a quiet park covered in snow, James turned to her and took her hands in his. "Emily," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "you've come so far, and I want you to know, I'm here for you, for as long as you'll have me." Emily looked into his eyes, the warmth in them melting away any lingering fear she had left. She realized then that James wasn't just her love, he was her partner, her best friend, the one who had shown her that love could be gentle and healing. In that moment, she saw her future with him, a future where she was no longer defined by her past, but instead embraced by a love that had brought her from darkness into light. They married a year later in a small, quiet ceremony. It was a simple affair, surrounded by a few friends and family, with snowflakes gently falling around them like blessings from the heavens. Emily wore a smile that came from deep within her heart, a smile that James had brought back to life. In his vows, he promised to love her in all her forms, the strong, the fragile, the joyful, and the vulnerable. And in her vows, Emily promised to cherish him, to love him with every part of her that had once been broken, but was now healed. She looked at him with eyes that no longer held fear or sadness, but only gratitude and hope for the future they would build together. In the end, Emily's journey from darkness to light was not just about finding love, but about finding herself. She had learned that while life could be harsh and filled with sorrow, there was always the possibility of happiness waiting just around the corner, and that sometimes all it took was one person, one patient, kind soul, to show her that life was still worth living, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. With James by her side, Emily walked forward, leaving her shadows behind, embracing a new chapter filled with warmth, trust, and a love that had brought her back to the light. The days after their wedding were like a dream come true for Emily. She and James had found each other in their own unique ways, and they built their life on a foundation of healing, trust, and the resilience they'd developed through their past trials. Their love was gentle but powerful, a steady force that had already overcome countless struggles. But life, as they both knew well, often had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. A few months into their marriage, they began planning for a family. They both dreamed of filling their home with the laughter of children, of creating a world filled with love and security for their future family. Something neither of them had fully experienced in their own childhoods. But as months turned into years, the dream of having children became a difficult journey. Each doctor's visit, each test result carried a heavy weight, and with every setback, Emily felt her old fears begin to creep back. The darkness she thought she had left behind whispered to her in moments of weakness, making her question her worthiness of happiness. But James was always there, his love as unwavering as ever. He held her close on the difficult days, whispering words of reassurance, telling her that no matter what, they were in this together. They sought support, considered every option, and slowly, they started to accept that their family might look different from what they'd envisioned. And though it was difficult, they found peace in knowing that they could still create a beautiful life together, with or without children. They even began talking about adoption, opening their hearts to the idea of giving love to a child in need. One snowy December night, as they were decorating their modest Christmas tree with twinkling lights, Emily's phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, and she almost ignored it, but something made her pick up. On the other end of the line was a social worker, calling about a child in urgent need of a foster family. The child had no family to speak of, and had been through more than any young soul should have to endure. The social worker had come across Emily and James's file from when they had first expressed interest in adoption, and, given the circumstances, they wondered if Emily and James might be able to provide a safe, temporary home. Emily looked over at James, her heart racing. It was unexpected, and she could see in his eyes that he felt the same mix of nerves and excitement. But as they spoke about it, Emily could feel something settle within her. She and James had always dreamed of sharing their love and creating a home where someone could feel safe and cherished. This was their chance, even if only for a short time, to make a difference in a child's life. When Lily walked into the room, her small frame seemed swallowed by her oversized coat. She was only 6, with dark, soulful eyes and an expression that spoke of things she was too young to understand. Emily knelt down to greet her, her heart breaking at the sight of Lily's guarded gaze, her tiny hands clinging tightly to the edges of her coat. "Hi, Lily," Emily said softly, her voice full of warmth. "I'm Emily, and this is James. We're so happy to meet you." Lily nodded silently, her eyes scanning the room before they finally rested on James, who offered her a small, reassuring smile. There was a long pause before Lily quietly reached out her hand, and James gently took it. Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her as she watched them. In that single gesture, she felt like the three of them had already become a family, bound by something deeper than words. The first few weeks with Lily were both challenging and rewarding. She was quiet, often keeping to herself, and Emily could sense the weight of her past in the way Lily moved through their home, as if she didn't quite belong there yet. At night, Emily would often sit outside Lily's door, listening to her soft breathing, hoping to offer her a sense of security. And in moments when Lily allowed herself to relax, when she shared a small smile or asked for help with a puzzle, Emily felt a surge of love she couldn't describe. But there were difficult moments too. Lily's past had left deep scars, and she sometimes withdrew, her expression clouding with fear or sadness. Emily would often find her curled up in a corner of her room, clinging to a worn-out teddy bear. Each time Emily would sit beside her, gently reassuring her without pressing too much, allowing Lily to come to her in her own time. Slowly, Lily began to trust them, and in time her walls started to come down. She would laugh at James's silly jokes, ask Emily to read her bedtime stories, and even started helping them decorate their home with small drawings she made. Each little act of trust felt like a victory, a step closer to showing Lily that she was safe, that she was loved. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Lily snuggled up to Emily and looked up with wide, wondering eyes. "Are you going to leave me too?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Emily's heart broke. She wrapped her arms around Lily, her voice thick with emotion as she whispered, "Never, Lily. We're here for you, for as long as you want us to be. You're part of our family now." James knelt down beside them, his hand resting gently on Lily's shoulder. "And we'll always be here for you, no matter what," he added, his voice steady and full of love. For the first time, Lily seemed to truly believe them. She looked between them, her eyes bright with tears, and nodded. That night, for the first time, she let Emily and James tuck her in and stayed up late telling them about her dreams, her hopes, the things she loved, and the things she was still afraid of. It was a breakthrough moment, a sign that Lily had finally found her way into their hearts. The years that followed were full of growth, healing, and love. Lily officially became their daughter, and together the three of them created a life that was full of warmth and joy. She grew up with parents who cherished her, who reminded her every day that she was worthy, that she was loved. And Emily and James found a new purpose in loving Lily, in building a family that, while unconventional, was exactly what they had always needed. Emily often thought back to the days before she met James, when her life was filled with darkness and uncertainty. She never could have imagined this future, a life where she had not only found love, but had also created a family born out of resilience, compassion, and unbreakable bonds. Looking at Lily, watching her laughter fill the room, she knew they had all saved each other, transforming their lives from darkness to light, hand in hand.